Hello and welcome to The Boy and the Bear for what is a special episode to cover a statement released over the weekend by Celtic Football Club. If you're listening to this episode, we all presume that you have read the statement. If not, we will post a link to it in our show notes. But as always, I am joined by Paddy the Boy and Scotty the Bear to cover this in depth. But Paddy Boy, I can only start with yourself. Obviously, we were actually together when this statement was released. Your initial thoughts on it?
It's pathetic, to be honest. When I first saw that they'd released a statement, I thought, okay, good, at least that's some communication, because that's the least that the support have deserved. And then I took time to read the statement, and the further on I got, the more angry I just got, because there's absolutely zero accountability. There's no recognition that, it's been a dreadful summer. No recognition that they are completely contradicting what the manager stated his aim for the club is and was, and that they haven't supported him. We'll get into it in more detail, but my reaction was just so disappointing, so cold and corporate. Like, it didn't mean anything. It just felt like jargon, and it's completely backfired, because the 99% of the reaction that I've seen, not just from Celtic fans, but from the mainstream media as well, is completely negative. Like, they've shot themselves in the foot. They've basically done in that statement everything that the supporters were accusing them of doing already. And since the statement was released, by the way, at 10 to 9 on a Saturday night, that was deliberate. Yeah. There's been 3 separate no confidence votes from the Celtic supporters associations that were present at the meeting. So, they were there. They know better than anyone else, like, what the mood of the room was, and they've said there's no confidence. And, like you said, the 3 of us were together. I instantly straight away gave my phone to Scotty so he could read the statement, and even, this diehard Bear told me that he didn't think that was good enough.
I mean, yeah. I can't believe the depth of the statement. That was the first thing that took me by surprise when I was reading it, is how they've kind of gone into each and every point that's kind of been raised by us, either on the podcast or wider media in general. Was there any part of you, Pat, that was at least enthused that you've seen some sort of statement from the board? Because we called for it. We called for it last time on the pod, didn't we? Yeah. We asked for something. Does this at least open the door for further dialogue, or do you think that the tone they took in a statement kind of stops that in its tracks?
Like I said to you, I was pleased that a statement had been released, because I thought, okay, if you're going to bridge this gap that's getting wider and wider between yourselves and everyone else associated with Celtic, then this is a good place to start. And then I started reading it, and I almost had to put my phone down in disgust, just because it was so, like you say, the tone of it, just not what the supporters deserve or expect. I feel that we're being treated with contempt, to be honest, and even try as hard as I might to give them the benefit of the doubt for anything, I just can't, because it just doesn't feel authentic. I was actually speaking to another Celtic fan who reckons that about 95% of it was AI, like he put into ChatGPT, like, write me a statement with addressing the following issues. Weirdly similar, guys. Weirdly similar. So, they don't have a leg to stand on. I think Michael Stewart, the pundit, summed it up perfectly when he could have said the statement could have been one word, and it could have been sorry.
Yeah, and that's the one word is actually missing from this statement as well. So there is no.
We recognise that. We appreciate that. Sorry, you guys feel this way. Not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, in the statement, they go into depth in terms of the financial model and why they've acted the way they've acted, and maybe a few of the factors that have kind of come into this specific transfer window that's just passed. The self-sustainability.
I think going into depth is being very generous, by the way. I think.
I mean as in, like, in depth, as in terms of the amount of individual points they make. Right, they obviously cover the media, etc. I don't mean as in, like they said, we sold this player for X and this was Y and so on and so forth. But they do reference the self-sustainability model. Now, just to cover that for the listeners, UEFA's new rules, the squad cost ratio cap plus wages plus transfer fees, agent fees, etc., is currently at 80% of revenue, and that is dropping to 70% by the end of this year, I believe. Celtic's turnover last year was 120 million, so in theory their maximum sustainability cost is 85 million. Their wage bill last year was 65, So there is headroom there, and I think what the board is saying in the statement, and by the way, this is no defence, I'm just trying to lay this out a little bit more in depth for the listener, is that if Celtic suffer a couple of years where Rangers actually do come back, win leagues, have poor European performances, they're obviously covering themselves for that, Pat. Is there anything from the Celtic fan base at all that you've seen that you can understand that they want the club to be run in that fashion?
I think, if I was to cede any ground or sort of recognise anything from the statement, it probably would be, like you mentioned, the UEFA stipulations, which, this is the first I've heard of it. I'm aware that it exists, but there's been no communication from the board to the Celtic shareholders or the wider support that, by the way, we need to play from this hymn sheet now, which is why we're doing X, Y, Z.
Yep.
The first we've heard of it is at the end of the transfer window, where they were still trying to spend 8 million on an Anderlecht player. So, how can you tell me that it's all about money and this is why we don't spend, when you were the ones that overspent on 2 players at the end of the window because you lowballed them for the entire summer? It makes no sense. It still doesn't explain how badly Michael Nicholson and the board have performed in terms of trying to attract players to Celtic, and also how they treated Adamida, leaving him in limbo in Wales, and treated Yang. For as all as we can laugh about it, the guy thought he was moving himself to Birmingham and then had to come back. It's just not it's cold. It's not a nice way to operate. I don't think there's any compassion or empathy. I think it's all self-defence. That felt like them putting a wall up, that statement, not welcoming dialogue. And I'm aware that it's good. I'm just ranting and rambling. So, yeah, apologies. But it's done absolutely, I think it's done more harm to the situation than good.
Yeah, I mean, they also covered in the statement about the speculation, and it almost seems like they blame the media and all the kind of false stories and people like us talking about murmurings and rumours and what should be happening in clubs and how that obviously it turns into a snowball effect. But surely every club's in the exact same boat with that. Surely Rangers have to deal with that. Every club that operates in the transfer window has to deal with that. What's the difference?
Celtic. It's like Celtic don't appreciate that it's 2025 and social media's been here for about 20 years.
Yeah.
It's like, there's this thing called social media, which is, and there's people talking about transfers. I'm like, yes, there is. So do something about it. Talk to us. It just makes no sense whatsoever. And again, like you say, that's blaming other things. That's making excuses. That's not accountability. That they publicly screwed this up. You can't turn around and blame it on social media transfer rumours.
Where do you see Rodgers within this just now? Do you think he was privy to the statement before it was released, or do you think that he's obviously seen this?
There was a Celtic insider released an article to the Sun in the morning saying that Brendan Rodgers was trying to tear the club apart from the inside because of the things he'd said in public, i.e., please buy me players, I'm a football manager, I want to get in the Champions League. So apparently that is tearing the club apart. And that feels very deliberate as well. A link, someone's gone to the press and leaked stuff on the Saturday morning, and then they've released that statement on the Saturday night. It can't be a coincidence. And, I've not changed my mind that the board have completely publicly undermined Brendan Rodgers in what feels like an effort to get rid of him. And I think Rodgers is now torn between the legacy of the way he left the last time and also probably wanting to leave this time. And who could blame him? Honestly, who could blame him? It's weird. Rangers are now in a situation where they seem to be, they have a functioning board at last, but not a very good manager. And Celtic are the opposite. We've got a really good manager, I think, in spite of the situation, and a heavily underperforming board. Because say what you like about Rangers, and maybe Scotty, you could, I'm aware I've been speaking for like 10 minutes. Rangers back their managers. So weirdly, maybe I want Celtic to be run a little bit more like Rangers have in last year, because you've appointed terrible managers, but you've backed them every single time, and you can only assume that they've brought in the players that those managers want. Rodgers hasn't been backed at all, really.
Well, with Rangers, it's more volume, though, isn't it? It's not quality. They just throw 10 players at a wall, hoping one of them sticks.
Well, it's like last year.
That's what Russell Martin's wanted, isn't it?
It's like take last year, not last year, sorry, 2 years ago when Beale came in, he was telling us about Jose Cifuentes, that's a player he wanted. He spoke to him specifically. So it's like he was backed to the tune of more than a Gerrard or a Gio, and that just was a disaster. So I agree that the managers do get backed, but our recruitment strategy has been terrible. We recruited the wrong players. But I do think it was funny, like last year, you know, you're watching Celtic go and spend 20 million on 2 players, you know, and it's like, that's a backing. That is, for Scottish levels, that's an unbelievable backing. So the fact that it's come, for me looking on the outside, it's like the fact it's come full circle now where he's not getting backed. He's publicly coming out saying, I need players, I need more from this squad. And then you see all the stuff that came out last week about Maeda having a deal to get away from Celtic,
Yeah.
all the noise that's getting pulled.
Scotty, sorry to jump in on you, but you can say, yeah, we spent 20 million on 2 players and that was him backed, but we also sold Matt O'Reilly, who was the team's, best player. And then in the January we sold Kyogo.
You also nearly got all your money back from Adamida as well. I know you lost a little bit on him, but that was going to be one of my next questions, is that do you think the last 2 signings, in terms of the volume of money that was spent on them, is influenced Celtic's strategy at all in terms of not backing the manager this time around? Did they not trust Rodgers with the money? Or whoever's making the transfers? I mean, that's another thing for both clubs, really, is who is making these transfers? Because we keep saying that managers don't get back-ins, things like that. But
that's the other thing they said in the statement, Steve, was every signing is run past the manager. It's done, but it's hard to It's hard to agree with that when Rodgers comes out and, says Inamura is, a prospect player that's not ready, and the club make a big thing of signing Callum Osmond, who's playing for the B team now. It's just, something just doesn't add up. And I think publicly the board have shown themselves to be the problem.
Yeah, where do you go from here as a club? I mean, do you see protests still happening at games?
Protests are happening right now. There's been banners going up outside Celtic Park. There's no sharks yet, unfortunately, Scotty, but it's quite fun. On the exit signs at Celtic Park, as you're leaving the ground, it obviously says exit with an arrow. And on 3 different signs, Celtic fans have written LOL in front of exit, Nicholson on another in front of exit, and Desmond above an exit as well. So, there is action being taken, and I think the board are probably hoping that by the end of September, when our next home game happens, things would have calmed down. But they have poured oil on the flames with that statement by not taking any accountability. And, corporate speak just isn't going to wash anymore. Celtic fans are done with it. That tone of that statement is exactly the issue with the way that Celtic fans feel as if they're being treated.
Do you think it comes down to a wider problem in Scottish football as well, that obviously the Celtic board don't have confidence in the wider game to be able to generate the money that allows Celtic to spend what they've got in the bank? Do you think that comes into it as well, Pat?
Yeah, and I think I can appreciate, to a degree, that you need a rainy day fund. Especially, we've been talking in earlier episodes about how the coefficient is dying on its arse. That's not been made any easier, with Scottish clubs in Europe this time round. So it does make sense to have a contingency, but I don't think you need the extent of contingency that Celtic have been ploughing away. And actually, if you're going to tackle the coefficient, then try and get into the Champions League.
Yeah,
it just none of it makes any sense. There's no joined up thinking. I can't think of a time recently where I've ever felt as if I'd known what Celtic were trying to do. Because when they appointed Rodgers, they said we want to make a mark in Europe, and they did last season. But like I always say, we never kick on. We sell players. We don't back the manager, and we start again. And that's what's happened. And Celtic fans have had enough of it because I don't know if you guys saw the graphic that was going around of like the previous managers' quotes every summer from like the last 10 years, going back to like the first time Lennon was in, just saying, yeah, I think recruitment is something we need to take a look at. There's obviously we need to get players in at the start of the window. This has been a problem for about 15 years. So it's not like this is a new thing. And Celtic fans, I think quite rightly, have just had enough. And I'm pleased to see no confidence votes going in. I'm pleased to see protests. I'm interested to see what the atmosphere at the next home game is going to be like. Where do we go from here? Back the team, sack the board, I think.
Scotty, I'm going to finish on you, mate. Reading that as a Rangers fan, and obviously we've talked about this in depth on the podcast about opportunities keep presenting themselves to Rangers to actually get themselves to that to winning leagues and winning trophies.
Yep.
Do you see this as now the biggest opportunity for Rangers to win a league in the last kind of 5 years since you last did it?
Absolutely. They're in turmoil, like internally on the field. There's clearly a lot of issues going on at the club, and I don't think we got a better opportunity to actually take full advantage of that. And then with this new American owners, with the new backing we actually have a chance to step in front. Because the Celtic board aren't going to spend. It doesn't look like they're going to spend any money. They've obviously told their fans to sit down, shut up, and just keep paying the season tickets, and you don't really know what you're talking about. Which I said to Pat at the time, it was a strange line, a kind of strange hill to die on, really.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, I just think we have to do something now, because we're not going to get this chance again, because there'll be a new manager coming in who won't take the job unless he's given guaranteed assurances that Celtic will spend money, because Rodgers will walk. If it's not in the next couple of weeks, it'll be in January or at the end of the season.
I think he will stay. I think he'll stay till the summer. I think he's going to be a manager's word this time around. I think he's already said, I'm not going to leave.
Do you mean if that's the case, right? So you'll be starting at a new position. We've got the best chance we've had, like you said, Stephen, 5 years to really make a go, and our manager is backed. We have no excuses as a squad. Martin kept saying to us, it's really difficult when you've got players half fit in the door, and I get it, half out the door. Now there's no excuses. The window's shut. Time to knuckle down and start getting the points on the board. But do I have confidence in Russell Martin? That's a different question. So
that's the thing. Have you already blown it? Because I agree with you, Scott. That's the thing. So if Rangers are going to ever, buck this trend, it's going to have to be this season.
Yeah.
Is Russell Martin the guy?
No, I'd sack him right now and bring in Jose Mourinho.
Well, let's finish this, boys, by saying let's keep an eye on Heart of Midlothian this season, eh?
Yeah.
Right. Well, you said it.
Tony Bloom Jr. over there.
You've been listening to a special episode of The Boy and the Bear. You will find us, if you're not already, on YouTube, Spotify, and obviously our shorts, etc. will go on Instagram and TikTok as well under the Boy Bear handle. Cheers, boys, and catch you next time.
Oh, I feel resentful saying it, but hail.
Follow. In also, Russell Martin's army, we trust.
I'm not going to be here for the pod recording next week, boys, but you'll never guess where I'm going. Lisbon. Do you know what happened there? Do you know what happened there, Scott?
I'm delighted you're not going to be on the next episode then.
I'll send you some photos of the stadium, eh?
Cheers, boys.
Cheers. Enjoy, Pat. Bye-bye.